want to, we can start with a couple of questions, and that way we give people an opportunity and do it a little backwards, but that way we give more people an opportunity to show up before I do my presentation. What do you think?
Okay, well, why don't I introduce you? I have your bio here. I don't think you need an introduction, but I will read it anyway. So our first speaker is a true fighter for the people of Florida. Born and raised in Colombia, daughter of an American fighter pilot and a Colombian mother, a working mom with a daughter in public school, and a successful small business owner who's lived the American dream. She was the first Latina in the state of Florida to run statewide when she was the Democratic nominee for lieutenant governor. That was with Charlie Crist, I think, back then. Now she's running to be the first Latina governor of Florida. She currently represents a district that Trump carried, and she flipped from red to blue in a special election in 2017, which was a very big upset. I remember it. Probably a lot of us remember it. And she became the first Latina Democrat to serve in the Florida Senate. She was reelected in 2018 to a 4-year term. Her legislative accomplishments further prove her true compassion for the underserved, as well as building a stronger Florida environmentally, economically, and educationally. In her years in the Senate, she's not only earned the trust and respect of her fellow Democrats, but she's been able to work across the aisle and even persuade some Republicans to see the light. That's pretty hard. Hers is an amazing story, and let's let her tell us. In our current political environment, it's refreshing. It's a must to have an incorruptible, fierce, and compassionate leader. So I give you Senator Taddeo.
Well, thank you so much. I really can't thank you enough. I'm delighted to be here with all of you Delray Dems, finally.
Right.
Right? Buenas noches. I know we've been trying and the schedule has been crazy. As you guys know, I was in our legislative session, and it was a horrible one. This was my 5th legislative session. So I just want to say thank you to all of you that helped me get elected. And I am honored to be the first Latina Democrat in Florida history, and the first Democrat to flip a seat from red to blue in a special election. We followed with others after that. And clearly we're getting much better at making sure that our people come out to vote, not just during presidential years, but all elections, because in my opinion, there are off elections that we need to have people out all the time. But yes, it was a rough session, and the schedule was really, really bad, but I am glad that I was there fighting the good fight against all of these horrible bills that were passed. But let me start by just telling you why I'm in this race and telling you a little bit more about myself so that you can get to know me better, and then we'll open it for questions. And there are no limits ever to my questions. So let me just tell you why I'm running and why this race is so important. And as I get ready and for the fact that we have a special session next week, not on the things that matter, like the fact that we have a rental crisis with people not having a place to live, the fact that we have a homeowners insurance crisis, which I have asked with my fellow Democrats for a special session. And I have good news. There is a poll going on right now of all legislators, because so many of us submitted the letter to the Secretary of State asking for that special session. Now there's a poll happening, and hopefully we will get the votes. But if we don't, then we will have all those Republicans on record not wanting to go to Tallahassee to deal with the real problems people are facing. So let me start by telling you that Florida has a red tide problem, and it's not just in our water, it's also in Tallahassee. But the red tide problem in Tallahassee actually is killing our democracy and suppressing our voters' rights. And boy, like I just talked about, the laws they passed this session, it also leaves a really bad smell as well. I'm Senator Annette Taddeo, and that's why I'm running for governor, to stop the horrible damage of the Tallahassee red tide. You know, people are saying that Democrats can win, that DeSantis is unbeatable, but they are so wrong. The narrative is wrong. And here are the facts as to why I say that. Yes, Biden had the worst collapse in vote share in my county, the county I represent in Miami-Dade history. Hillary did 23 points better. Gillum did 15 points better. But we lost because our party didn't forcefully bash down Republican lies about socialism. I'm the daughter of an American fighter pilot who fought against the Nazis in World War II. He's my hero. And he always told me, when the cost is just, don't stand on the sidelines, get in there and fight for what you believe. And I get that fighting spirit from my hero, my dad. And boy, did I need that fighting spirit from the minute I was born. You see, I was born with a cleft lip. And when you're born with a part of your mouth missing, you can't drink from your mother's breast milk. It's very difficult as you start learning to speak and to enunciate. And frankly, I was bullied tremendously as I was growing up. It took 19 surgeries. So I can be here with all of you on this Zoom tonight and not just smile real big, but also speak to you in 2 languages. So I have to tell you that fighting spirit, I needed it then. And I needed that fighting spirit again when at the age of 17, the FARC, a Marxist terrorist group, took over the farm I grew up in Colombia and kidnapped my father. I want to see Ron DeSantis try putting on the socialista label on that. I needed that fighting spirit when suddenly, at the age of 17, I found myself fleeing to Alabama, of all places, where I was on my own. I had to learn English and I had to learn at the same time to survive on my own. So if you hear a little bit of a y'all or a Southern drawl mixed in con mi acento en español, now you know why. So when I tell you that I am ready for a tough fight, I mean it. And I learned that lesson early on in college. I decided to run for student government secretary, and I put posters all over the school that said Annette Taddeo for secretary. And on the day of the election, as I was going off to vote, my posters with my smiling picture no longer said Annette Taddeo for secretary. Secretary had been crossed out, and they said Annette Taddeo for deportation. I lost that election, but I gained so much more. You see, at that moment, I knew that I could be angry, or I could be bitter, or I could allow it to strengthen and inspire me. And that is the day that I decided that I would run for office someday, because I know that no matter the color of our skin, our sexual orientation, our gender identity, the way we look, or the accent we have, what makes this country great is the strength in our diversity and our belief that in America, when the cause is just, you get in there and fight for what's right. I moved to Miami after college and started a business I still have today. And for 30 years, unlike Ron DeSantis, I've actually signed the front of the paychecks, not just the back. And then when I ran for state senate in that special election in 2017, I want you to know initially party leaders told me to stand aside, that I couldn't win, that we couldn't win. But we won. and I beat a friend of Donald Trump, someone they called the next Marco Rubio. And I became the first Latina Democrat in the Florida Senate history. I also became the first Hispanic Jew in the Florida legislature. And then I got reelected, and I represent this seat still today. It is a seat that Trump won by 6 points. And here's why that matters. If Joe Biden had simply matched Hillary Clinton's margins in only five counties with the largest Hispanic vote, he would have actually gotten 350,000 additional votes. That alone would have nearly wiped out Trump's entire margin of victory. And let's not forget that DeSantis won by barely 30,000 votes. We know what doesn't work when it comes to winning in Florida. Boy, we've tried it all. Here's what will. At a time when parental rights are the new attack, how about nominating the only parent in the primary, a mom with a daughter in public school, a businesswoman who has proven she can win in a Trump seat, and has the history and the story to reverse the gains Republicans have made with Hispanics. And most importantly, we need a nominee with the fighting spirit. Just like I told the party bosses who told me not to run in my special election. I don't ask my husband what to do. I don't know what makes you think that I'm going to ask the powers that be for permission. Because, you know, we won't let them dictate when we run, what issues we talk about, where we campaign, or how we win. Tell this Alabama girl who grew up on a farm that we can't campaign in all 67 counties in this state of Florida. Or tell this Latina that we can win back the Latino vote in Central and South Florida. Or tell this mom, again, with a kid in public school, that we can't teach our kids about African-American history. Or tell this businesswoman who meets a payroll every week that we can't talk about the problems that people are facing, especially women re-entering the workforce after COVID. Or tell this progressive that we can't talk about access to healthcare, quality education, safety in our schools without being called socialistas. You know, I started my 67 county tour in front of the governor's mansion. And here's what I said to Governor DeSantis right in front of the governor's mansion. I said, Governor DeSantis, if you call me a socialista, I'm going to call you a liar, because you see, my family fled to come here. And I have built a successful business for 30 years. So you may have learned about capitalism in an Ivy League classroom, but I actually live it every single day. And let me tell you something. Republicans thrive on inciting fear, fear of change, fear of what could happen, fear of someone that doesn't look or talk like them. And this last session was the hardest of my career. And I probably would have been better off staying or staying out, just sitting it out, because I wasn't allowed to fundraise while I was in session. So the so-called freest state in the country passed legislation to ban books, ban a woman's right to choose, even in cases of rape or incest, just signed into law today by Governor DeSantis, ban the teaching of Black history, ban saying gay, ban unaccompanied immigrant children, ban voting rights, and even ban diversity and inclusion training at private corporations. DeSantis repeatedly that there is no Florida. I'll wait for people to mute.
David, mute everyone.
DeSantis showed us repeatedly, that there is no Florida community or business that he won't sacrifice to further his political ambitions. You know, he's more interested in extremist primary voters in Iowa and New Hampshire than he is about Floridians. It's never been more clear that we need new leadership in Tallahassee. And I wasn't going to sit on the sidelines. So we stayed and we fought. So here I am, fighting again. And I know the road is long and the mountain is high, but I've beaten the odds every single time in my life. So now let me close by telling you why I believe that no matter the odds, we can win. After we won that special election in 2017, I got an invitation from my alma mater, the University of North Alabama, and they said, we want you to come and give the commencement speech to the 2018 graduating class. I was so excited, I said yes right away. And then I realized, wait, should I tell them how this all got started? Should I tell them about my experience running for student government secretary and where my desire to serve got born? And I questioned if I should, because think about it, this is deep red Alabama, and I wasn't sure how they were going to react. This is 2018, right after Trump got elected, but I decided that I needed to tell the story because it was bigger than me. It's bigger than fear or division. And so I gave my speech in my accented English with my big smile to a stadium full of graduates and their families. Well, I wasn't thrown out. I wasn't booed. Instead, I received a standing ovation. And that's why I believe, because it's what we have in common that is more important than what divides us. Florida, I believe in us. That's why I believe we can win. Yo soy Annette Taddeo y voy a ser la primera gobernadora de la Florida. And boy, I gotta tell you, Delray Dems, that's how we win.
Mhm.
That is.
I'm gonna mute everybody. Senator, unmute yourself because you're gonna get caught in the net when I do
No,
that.
no, I'm fine. I'll unmute.
Okay, so hang on. Okay, so just to take care of the noise occasionally. Here we go.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay, now Senator, unmute yourself and let's. You can all unmute yourself when you need to talk, but
Okay.
this is just to hold down the dog barking and stuff.
Okay, let me just kick it off, Senator, by saying right next to you on my Hollywood Squares screen there is Steve Fratkin, who is wearing our blue "We Vote, We Win" shirt. And that really, that's how we do it. You know, I mean, we really need, and the scary thing, and let me just ask you to comment on that. The scary thing is the enthusiasm gap. I mean, the Trump and DeSantis voters are truly crazy. I mean, they're insane. When we were out on the street back in November 2020, some guy pulled up in a car and yelled out, "Donald Trump is the greatest president in the history of this country." And I said, "Why stop there?" I said, "He's Jesus Christ." And the guy yelled back, "That's right, he's Jesus Christ." That's the level of mind that we're dealing with. And, you know, on our side, you know, we have people angry at Biden because he couldn't get things through, you know, whichever one of you captures the nomination, the problem is going to be uniting the party behind that person, you know, because, you know, people are going to say you're too progressive for me. You know, someone else is going to say Charlie Crist used to be a Republican, you know, and I mean, grow up. Do you want Ron DeSantis to have a second term? I mean, anyway, that wasn't a question. Let me see if anyone has a question, or if you have some thoughts about how do we motivate.
No, real quick. And first of all, thank you for wearing that shirt, Steve. You are so right. And that's actually what I was in essence talking about when I was giving a lot of the numbers. I want people to understand the fact that we always get so disappointed. We lose by such tiny margins. And somehow, I'm so glad you brought up that person you ran into, because somehow we are thinking that we are going to convince these people and bring back these people that are so far gone. So for the longest time, we keep trying to run an election based on an old formula. And I want you to know that what I did in my special election, and although I was told I couldn't win, it couldn't be done, it's a majority Cuban American district, all these reasons why I was given, it will never happen. And they spent $10 million, by the way, trying to stop me. It was nasty. They had commercials on TV every break that said, they didn't just call me socialista, they called me comunista, and they also called me a terrorist sympathizer. So they went really, really far, and we fought back. We didn't let them. Like I said, you can't just take it and say it's ridiculous. Of course it's ridiculous, but it's politics, and you got to fight back, and you got to make sure that you call out the lies. And on the bright side for me is they just have to make the stuff up because there's nothing there to attack that is real. So they make it up. But let me go back to why I think we need to create our own electorate. And that is because that is something that we saw. The two times we have won in Florida in our recent history was Barack Obama in 2008 and in 2012 re-election. And one of the things that was done by Barack Obama, it was really the creation of a brand new voting coalition. He brought out voters that we hadn't seen vote in a really, really long time or ever. And that's what I did in my special election. We got people excited to vote for someone, not just against someone. We made sure that we communicated with those voters that we knew were sitting there and would not come out, a lot of them non-Cuban Hispanics, who just really never had a reason to come out to vote, or that voted for presidentials but didn't really vote for anything else. And I believe, right, the reason why I gave you the 350,000 voters difference between Hillary and Biden is because we have to bring those types of voters out for us to bring it over the top. The Republicans have gotten really good at getting to our margins, whether it's just barely getting a few of our Jewish voters and getting 1 point here, half a point there from the different voting blocks. And that's unfortunately how we lose. But to lose Hispanics in such huge percentages, we didn't lose them, we won them, but to lose the percentages drop so much is really, really, the math won't work for us in Florida if we don't get that back.
Right.
I saw that Steve had a
Other
question.
comments, questions?
Um,
Well, while they're thinking, I'll tell you the answer to Marco Rubio calling people socialist is an article I wrote, the title of which is "Your Mama's a Socialist." And Marco Rubio's parents were both on Social Security. So if you're a socialist, he is too.
Mark Schneider has a hand up.
Senator Taddeo, thank you for
Hello.
being here. I'm very stupid politically because I would have thought, as long as a year ago or so, that the fact that Republicans in Florida had raided the Sadowski Fund for so many years, and now we have a housing crisis, would impress voters. And I would have thought that the fact that Governor Scott sabotaged the unemployment compensation system when the crisis occurred, I thought that that would have influenced voters to reject the Republican Party line, because they've been doing nothing for Florida voters except exciting their hatred of liberals.
Right.
So how do you, in your campaign, how would you deal with the economic issues that should impact people's lives, that we would believe would impact people's lives, versus the cultural issues that seem to really excite people. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for bringing that up, Mark, and thank you for talking about affordable housing. That is an issue that we should be talking more about. And I have been, ever since I got to the legislature, the sponsor of the bill to not allow, no matter who is in power, not allow the rating of the Sadowski Trust Fund, because that's part of the reason why we're in this mess, because over 20 years of the money being taken out of it and not going towards building the infrastructure for the affordable housing, now we're in this crisis. With regards to all these pocketbook issues, I think that we as Democrats have not done a good enough job talking about those issues. And the reason why the Republicans want to divide us and talk about the issues that divide us, truly divide us, is because it works for them. They don't want to talk about the fact that the rent is too damn high. It's #1 in the country, by the way. In Miami, #1, more expensive than San Francisco
Wow.
or New York. Most people don't know this, but the rent is now more expensive. Think about what that does to the economy, what that does to the employees you can hire, how much the employees require for you to pay, because to live here costs so much. So all of this is really causing problems for everyone, including small business owners. So we need to do a better job of making sure that we set the tone, that we talk about the issues we want to talk about, because they love to get us all fired up and talking about those issues that divide us. And we're not talking enough about the issues that get us to a win. And that is actually my dog. So I just want you to know that that is not somebody else.
Can't mute that one.
Oh, okay, that's the second dog wanting to come in. I'll show them in a second so that you guys see my babies. But we can have dogs again at the governor's mansion. Tells you a lot when this guy has no pets.
Steve, we vote, we
The
win.
same as Trump, right? No pets. Now we have pets at the White House. We need them at the governor's mansion in Florida. But anyway, what I was saying is I am running on very much a lot of pocketbook issues, because there is a lot of issues that are affecting people. Obviously, the rental crisis is a real problem. In addition to that, we have the home insurance problem. I want you to know that I was there on the floor last year when they actually voted and the governor signed the bill that directly said it in black and white, right in the bill, that is going to raise citizens' rates. And I stood up and I said, I'm sorry, but you guys are going to vote for this? Have you read the bill? I mean, it is, I said, there is no sugarcoating this. It is right here in black and white in the bill. The rates are going to go up on all your constituents. And then next year, which is now this year, I said, your phone's going to be ringing and all these constituents are going to be saying, I can't afford my home insurance. What is this? And that's exactly what's happening right now. All of the people, they're not calling because of Don't Say Gay. They're not calling because of something at the school or, you know, a book that needs to be banned. No, those aren't the calls we're getting. The calls we're getting is, I can't afford my insurance. The bill went up by a huge amount, or we're getting the rent just went up and I have to move and there's no place to move. These are the calls we are getting. That's what we need to be talking about. That's what we need to highlight to people, that they went to Tallahassee and took care of problems that didn't even exist just to create the division, the hatred, blame somebody for everything that's wrong in the world, and not fix the real problems that people are dealing with. So I tell you, when we do that, we can win because we can control the message. So I think that we need to do a far better job. And I'm going to end with this. Real important. I have been the sponsor of Medicaid expansion since I got there. I know we have the votes in the Florida Senate and the Florida House. We just don't have a governor that's willing to do it. Only 12 states remaining in the whole country that have not expanded Medicaid. Now, we as Democrats for the longest time have always said, well, we should expand it because it'll give coverage to 1 million Floridians. And that is true. And it's so true. But guess what? We need to also tell those voters who have insurance what's in it for them. Why? Because the Republicans' answer is, oh, it's going to cost us money, which is not true, because it's our money that we're sending to Washington and we're going to not take it back. That's crazy. We're actually having to put out a pocket to cover for the uninsured. But guess who's putting out a pocket to cover the uninsured? Those of us who have insurance.
Right.
Because every time you go to the hospital, you have insurance, you are being taxed. It's a hidden tax. You do not see it. It is a hidden $2,000 tax, $2,000. Why? Because they need to cover all of the fact that we have all these people who are uninsured because we haven't expanded Medicaid. And let me tell you, those $2,000 are not being paid by the insurance company, not being paid by the hospital, and certainly not being paid by the insurance company, by the doctors. So what happens? Where did I get this from? This $2,000 comes from Annette Taddeo or from some liberal think tank? No, it comes from that super liberal group, the Florida Chamber of Commerce. They did a study to see how much it was costing us to not expand Medicaid. But that's what I mean as an example of the way we need to talk about issues so that we can get voters to understand the reason why they should vote for us and why it's costing them money to vote for them.
Thanks. Hold on, Bob. Steve had his hand. Steve, we vote, we win. Fradkin has his hand up. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much for voting me in. I wasn't even running. I can hardly walk. I have a couple of questions for the senator, if I could. Just to, by way of introduction, for those of you who don't know me, I'm from Massachusetts. I've been living here in Florida for about 10 years. I've been active in the Democratic, as a Democratic activist, party leader, and professional consultant for about half a century. The questions I'm asking, Senator, if I could, I assume you're still here. I don't see your face anymore.
I'm here.
There you are. Okay. First question is, you may have heard there are a couple of other Democrats running for the governorship. And the polls at this point are showing one of them at a tie with DeSantis, and one of them leading DeSantis by several points, but I didn't see your name in the polls. Why? Can you convince me why you are a better candidate to beat DeSantis in November than Charlie or Nikki?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I was talking about when I was saying that the math doesn't work in Florida. We've already tried all these things before.
I'm going to interrupt you here because I'm not asking you what you think of the government. I'm asking you what you think of the voters. What's going to convince the voters to vote for you as opposed to voting for Charlie or voting for Nikki? Well, I understand what's wrong.
That's a primary question.
I'm doing message consulting for another statewide candidate right now.
Wait. I need to ask a question because I thought you were asking a general question. You're asking the primary question.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm asking the primary question because the winner of the primary has got to go on to beat DeSantis. Yes. And that to me is the biggest issue going.
Absolutely. But I gave the math as to why in the general, you have to have a candidate that's actually going to bring out the vote and fight back the socialism charge that is coming. And we have to win the Hispanic vote, and we have to increase those margins by a lot, and we have to win Miami-Dade by a lot. which I believe is very difficult to do if you're not a candidate that can push back on those issues, because that is the reason why we've had that problem. Now, I want you to know that in the primary, okay, we do have a primary, there's no question. And polls are all over the place, and there's tons of polls, by the way, not just those. But I will say that, you know, if we went by polls at this stage, we should ask how they feel about those polls. For example, we can ask Governor Adam Putnam how he feels about the fact that he was so way ahead, and there's no way that guy Ron DeSantis, nobody knew who he was going to win. Or when Graham was way, way ahead in the polls, and there was no way that Andrew Gillum, who was dead last and at 3%, was ever going to win. And so, so that is my answer to the polls this early on. What we know is that when people hear my message, when they actually are able to see all three of us, they're able to see the difference and the importance of nominating someone who can win in a Trump area, someone who can bring voters that we have been hemorrhaging, which is the Hispanic voters, someone who can go toe-to-toe with DeSantis on parental rights, since I am a parent, and unlike Ron DeSantis, I have a kid in public school, and all of the things that we're going to need to go toe-to-toe against him in order to beat him in the general. So I know that I wouldn't have gotten in this race, because if I didn't think it was doable, and if I didn't see the math that was there. And I will tell you that this race is not about Charlie, is not about Nikki, or even about me. It's about something so much bigger than any of us.
It's about the senseless.
It's about it's about our democracy, because this guy, if we don't stop him, he will be president. And that is the reason why we have to put the person that can bring out the coalition of voters, that can excite Democrats to come out, that can actually bring new people, so that we can get that 30,000 to 60,000 vote margin that we lose by every time.
I think it will be fun. I think it will be fun, though, to watch DeSantis and Trump going after each other, each one trying to out Diablo the other.
Yeah, one more thing I want to add that I forgot, and yes, that would be fun to see, and I do think it will at some point happen when one thinks. But I do want to add that I know that we have an opportunity to have at the top of the ticket for Senate Val Demings, who is an amazing candidate with an amazing story of perseverance and just the great American dream story that she has. And I know that if we have at the top of the ticket Val Demings, followed by the first African-American woman to run for Senate in Florida and the first Latina to run for governor in Florida, not only will we break barriers all over the place, but we will be historic, we will be exciting. Both of us have a story and a history and a perseverance within us that is going to be essential. And that will be a ticket and something we've never tried.
Well, with your enthusiasm and your dedication, I hope you're right.
Yeah. So I think we have Erica Whitfield. We were having you like till 7:30 or so. I think Bob had one question. Do you have a question, Bob, or should we? Audrey. Well, Bob and then Audrey.
But Annette, I just want to say your life story and enthusiasm are just so inspirational. You make it sound like anything is possible. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Bob.
Sí, hola, Senador.
Hola.
Felicidades y Chag Sameach Pesach.
That's right. Tomorrow.
It is true. So Senator, I am a board member of this club in Delray Beach, but I also, at the same time, am a member of the political committee for the Loxahatchee group for the Florida chapter of the Sierra Club. And with, with that in mind, certainly, and you've spoken to a number of seriously important kitchen table issues. And, issues that, generally fall under the purview of organizations like the Sierra Club aren't, typically viewed as kitchen table issues, but nonetheless, we know are so quintessentially important because they sit at our very existence, right? So whether it's red tide or it's toxic aquifers or it's beach erosion or it's something. Sorry.
Water,
precisely, and air. Particularly, let me focus on the air in Western Palm Beach County, as I'm sure you know. In Western Palm Beach County and on the shores of Lake Okeechobee, we have some very, very serious business going on with Big Sugar, who we know also, tends to have, quite a toehold over, many of our electeds. And as a result, the types of measures that are being taken in places, further west, and in other parts, and certainly in other states with respect to handling of the waste products of the sugarcane harvesting and processing, are not being employed in Western Palm Beach County. And when these toxic measures are being employed, they're being employed on days when the winds aren't blowing toward the more affluent and less melanin possessing areas of Palm Beach County. I think I've given you quite a setup here. I would ask you, Senator, to please speak, not only to this, this prevalent issue here in Palm Beach County, but, in general, where you sit on some of the major environmental challenges we face here in Florida.
Yeah, and I obviously start with the red tide for a reason. It's a good parallel of us as a state not really thinking long term towards our existence and subsistence and investing in the infrastructure, and then seeing all these problems, and then when they pop up, then you're trying to fix them or put band-aids on them, which obviously costs a lot more. And it hurts tremendously because we do depend a lot on the visitors that visit the state of Florida. So the environment is not just for those in Palm Beach or whichever area they're affected. We also had the Piney Point issue. But let me tell you a little bit about my record going up against big companies and really not being afraid to really, try to find solutions. One of my bills in the legislature is a bill against a bottle company, Evian, not Evian, Nestle. So Nestle decided that they wanted to go ahead and pump out 1 million gallons of water per day from our beautiful natural springs. And they get this for free. And when I tell people this, they're like, what? And so my bill would actually tax them for that water, so that then that money can go into a trust fund that gets matching dollars from the federal government. And then we would actually be investing in the infrastructure and the protection of our water supply through those natural springs, instead of giving it away, and hopefully get them away from the plastic and all the things that are getting us into major trouble. So that is one of the bills. And I will tell you, when I put that bill forward and I got it to be put on the agenda and to get a hearing, they went berserk and they spend millions and millions of dollars on TV killing my bill in Tallahassee, making sure that I was actually, that this bill didn't move forward. But I made them hear it. I made them go through it. I knew that it was going to die because they let me know. And even the Republicans who were like, we understand where you're coming from and we think this is good policy. They're like, we have to kill it. And so this is the way things work in Tallahassee. They actually will kill and will only listen to the lobbyists and the major powers. And so it is really, really very difficult to move anything forward of huge significance. And this is why it's so important for us to have some kind of balance of power, because if we are going to continue with the House and the Senate and all of them just rubber stamping whatever their party tells them to do, which is in essence what they do, because they're doing it next Tuesday for the governor with the maps, we have to have a balance to veto bad legislation, to go back and forth with the veto pen to get them to repeal some of these really bad bills so that we can start fixing some of the problems that you bring up. Because it's really like, I can sit here as a candidate and make all kinds of promises, but let's be realistic about what is it that you get to do as governor, and what are we going to do to fix some of these things that for 20 years they have been doing in the state of Florida that have really hurt our communities. And every one of these problems, and don't think that Palm Beach is alone, because it's all over the place. I know this specific issue, but it's all over the place that we have issues. And usually the problems in the most affected communities are Black and brown communities.
Absolutely.
And so I can tell you that we need to absolutely be able to educate Black and brown communities as to why this affects them. And also we need to be able to find solutions. I actually was talking with an expert on, of all things, sugarcane in South America. And they have figured out a way to do it effectively, clean, and to not burn the field. So I was very interested in finding out more about how this function, and this is what we need. We need leadership that can not just fight, but actually bring solutions for us to be able to no longer do it in a way that is not, not good for the people around. And the other place where I have seen amazing work when it comes to lands and agriculture is in Israel. What Israel has figured out in the middle of a desert, to how much water they use, the reuse of water, and the technology they've come up with, and all of the things we can learn as a state to really bring this state to the 21st century, to be able to not damage our beautiful aquifer and all of the things we depend on. I really think our wars are going to be about water. So we really, really need to concentrate on making sure that we do the infrastructure work, that the government is involved in finding solutions, so that we can actually move forward and have a planet, but also have a state and have clean water. But obviously continue to have jobs for people, because that's the argument of a lot of them is, oh, you're going to take our jobs away. So I'm ready for those conversations is what I'm saying. I'm ready for us to really start doing things a little different. And I'll use as a perfect example, right here in Miami-Dade, when I was chair of the Miami-Dade Democratic Party, I recruited this lady to run against an incumbent county commissioner. I had this crazy idea that Democrats would take over the county commission and eventually win back the mayor's office. And people laughed at me, but with my spirit of we can do it, we recruited people. And one of those recruits was the now mayor, first woman mayor, Daniela Levincava. And we have seen how you can actually bring ideas and try to bring everyone to the table so we can move our community forward and bring more jobs, but better paying jobs and all the investment and all the things. So I think it's great that we are also electing good people so that we can show Democrats across the state, but certainly in Miami-Dade, where it's a huge problem about the voters, that, hey, look at this. It actually turns out really good when you elect a Democrat.
One more question from Peter Camacho.
Oh, hey,
Yeah.
Hey, Senator, how are you?
I'm great.
Okay, it's a quick question. What strategy or common ground can you bring to the Hispanics? Again, there's so many Hispanics and different, Colombians, as you and I are.
Yeah.
And I think we're leaders, and I think you are a leader. Can you bring together, since we're all so dispersed, so what commonalities and strategies do you think you can use to try to get everybody to work cohesively together?
Well, I know that I'm so glad you asked that question, because there are so many in our party that think that we are all one, and just talk to them about immigration. And meanwhile, that's like down here in the priority of things we want to talk about. But I do think that where we have messed up a little bit is where we don't realize that the church plays a key role, that the family plays a key role, that we are very much worried about our kids' education. And by the way, I think I'm finding a lot of things in common when it comes to the issues that are affecting Floridians with the cost of living, the cost of rent, and the insurance crisis on their homes. Remember, everybody's American dream, especially Hispanics, is to have la casita. And it's getting prohibitive because the insurance is prohibitive. So I know that these are the issues that bring us together, a lot of pocketbook issues. But also what brings us together is being able to speak to them to that specific issue of each area. I'm going to Puerto Rico in May. I am almost every weekend in Central Florida. I was there last weekend. I was there the weekend before, and I'll be there again this weekend. There is a lot of things and a lot of different communities within Central Florida, both Puerto Rican and other nationalities, and every one of them has their own festivals, their own things, their own issues that they care about. I know in Colombia right now is the upcoming election that's got everybody on pins and needles. And so there's a lot of different things. And what helps about having somebody like me is that I understand, I know what's going on in each of these places. I don't have to be taught or given a brief to understand the different factions and the different points of view of the divisions within each community. And I can speak the language. That definitely makes a huge difference. And I know that that's been a problem that we have had, because Republicans have had numerous representatives, and now the lieutenant governor, that can go there and just speak the language. And they're very, very good about doing something that we're not so good at. But that I know that I've been critical of some of my fellow Democrats when they haven't, and that is that they're present. And I think the reason that I can stay so successful in a district that voted for Trump by 6 points is that I am present all the time, not just come election time. And by the way, this is not just in the Hispanic community. This is also in the African-American community. A lot of people don't know this, but I overperformed Andrew Gillum on the ballot, which is really hard to do when you're way down here. But one of the ways of doing that is by always being present, by really having people realize that you are a part of their community, not just come election time to ask for a vote. And we are notorious as Democrats for showing up 2 weeks, 3 weeks before an election, and it's too late.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator. I'm really glad that we got your schedule to work out, and I think everyone loved hearing from you, and wish you the best in your campaign. Thank you, Millie and Vanessa, for making this possible. And good luck. Well, I don't know if you want to hang around and listen to Erica Whitfield, but you're obviously welcome to do so. Erica is a school board member from actually the district that covers part of Delray Beach, the city side of it, East Delray.
Senator, I saw you at the Pride Parade the other day. I said hello to you when I was there. It's
I
good to-
know, it was great to see you, yes, and yes, I was there for the Pride Parade, absolutely. It was
coming.
such a nice parade, yes,
I'm
I'm glad
very
I was
glad
there.
you're here. We appreciate your support so much.
No problem. I have a question here on the chat and I'm answering that. So I'm going to stay on just for a little bit to answer that. And then I'll take off because I know that my daughter was coming in and asking about dinner. So I still got to do those things.
Okay. All right. So while you answer that, I'll introduce Erica. Little background, native Floridian. Probably not many native Floridians on the screen right now, but she graduated from the University of Florida with a Bachelor of Health Sciences degree and has a master's in public health from Emory. Before she was elected to the school board, she worked at the Palm Beach County Health Department, focusing on chronic disease education and community partnerships. She continued her career at the school district of Palm Beach County as project coordinator for the Robert Wood Johnson Healthy Kids, Healthy Communities grant, and a wellness coordinator for the school food service department. Since becoming a school member, she's championed public health issues and worked to implement the first policy requiring hands-only CPR be taught to every student before graduation. For the past several years, she serves as chair of the United Way Childhood Hunger Action Committee and implemented backpack and food pantry programs throughout the district, bringing in many community partners. We've had some of those partners on our programs, and it's shocking the amount of homelessness among kids in what is one of the wealthiest counties in Florida. She is going to what I asked Erica to speak on is something that I think we're all interested in, and you alluded to, Senator, in terms of the horrible session that you just went through, we all went through, and the impact. I think the only good news from it is that it may actually help Democrats in November, because it occurred to me that we're always being attacked as extremists, you know, abolish ICE, defund the police. Well, Democrats in Washington didn't do any of those things, even though they control both houses. We haven't done that. What we've done is pass programs that actually help people. In Florida, the Republicans have the same power. Well, they have more power than the Democrats had in Washington, because we've got Manchin and Sinema and a lot of other dinos. But in Florida, the Republicans don't hold back, you know, and the stuff they've passed isn't really popular. I mean, the anti-abortion bill, the Don't Say Gay, even what they're doing, and maybe especially what they're doing with critical race theory, which isn't being taught anyway, in telling teachers what they can and cannot teach. I heard someone speak the other day who said that what our candidate should be saying is, if you liked Castro, you'll love DeSantis, because what he's doing is, telling. I mean, he talks about freedom, but he basically is in the forefront of passing things that take away our freedoms. Anyway, let me ask Erica to tell us more about these horrible legislation and what, if anything, we can be doing about it.
Well, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate you all having me on here. I'm very grateful to hear from the senator first. I think, as we're thinking about how we could have done better in this session, I mean, for a school board member to have a Democrat in the governor's seat, even if we keep losing the House and the Senate, if we could just win that one seat, I know it's a huge ask, but it would mean that we would have the ability to stop some of this. It is just, it is unrestricted power right now, and it is very difficult. And so I'm going to talk about some of the bills that really impact schools, and some of the things that are happening here, and talk about your school board. You have a great school board. I really think Palm Beach County is doing quite well right now. We are under attack in ways that we have never been. I don't think anyone's ever cared about school board before, truthfully. And it is one of those things that right now we have the same people come to every meeting to yell at us and tell us, how horrible of a job they think we're doing. They have put a lot of lies into the work that we do. They believe that we are not listening to them, that we've been called pedophiles and groomers recently. That was a pretty painful one. There's been some just unbelievable attacks on us that are truthfully quite hurtful. So what we're trying to do as a school board is still take care of our children. And that's been my number one goal this whole time. Similar to the senator, I have a daughter in public schools. I have another one who is 2 years old now, so we'll be going through the system eventually. So, I find this extremely important to make sure that we're doing the best thing that we can. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the legislation, but I'll just be open to any questions you have about anything school related. I'm here to answer those questions for you. So the first one, which I know everyone is the most interested in, is the Don't Say Gay bill. This is HB 1557. What it really does, what's actually going to happen with it, is it has really made it so that they're tightening up on our ability to talk about LGBTQ, which is is really very dear to my heart. It is something that I've worked very hard on in my time in office, is to take care of our kids that are trans, that are gay, have gay families, really anybody who's questioning. I feel like we have to take care of these children because we know that they are struggling the most. We know that they have the most likelihood of suicide. And so we're already dealing with a very fragile group of children. As far as I'm concerned, they have high mental health issues. And now we have the government is saying, creating laws to really come against them. So this is a near and dear one to my heart. So the goal of it is that they are not going to have any conversation about sexual orientation or gender identity discussed in grades K through 3. The first thing I want to say to that is we've never talked about gender orientation or sexual identity or gender identity or sexual orientation in grades K through 3. No kindergarten teacher wants to have this conversation. They've never wanted to have this conversation. So the idea of the rule is a rule that's solely for political purposes because it's not solving a problem that we actually had. So let's start with that. Nobody's teaching this. So I've had people call me and they say, Erica, I want you to know, I don't think we should be talking about sex to kids in kindergarten. And I said, nobody does. No human wants to do this. No parent wants to do this. It's not on the list of things that we do. So now we're not allowed to. So it really makes no difference when it comes to that. Now they have had an opportunity to go through.
Very nice.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say something?
I like this one.
You like
I
this?
like it.
Sorry, I think
Apply forward.
we're picking up some other stuff that's happening there. So this is not something that we're doing, like I'm saying, but it has really brought around some of the questions about a couple of books. So there were 2 books that were found that were in our libraries, and we have pulled them from the libraries right now, just so we can make sure that they don't run afoul of this law. And the reason we had to do that is because it is a law. And so if we break that law, we will be spending your taxpayer dollars in lawsuits. And we're trying not to do that. We don't want to do that. So the books are under review. They have to be. We have to figure out the way that we're going to review those. It's actually in another bill that we have that they like to call it the book banning bill. I'll tell you which one that is really quickly, just so I can share with you on that. So the idea is they're going to have to create this separate, so this one is HB 1467. Within that one, it actually says that we have to have training for people around knowing what the appropriate curriculum is that's out there. And there will be certified credentialed individuals selecting library materials. We don't actually know what these things are. We don't have any guidance from the Department of Education yet, not on how we're going to choose which books, and we don't have any information on how to deal with the Don't Say Gay bill. So they have also added in a piece that, so we won't find this out. The legislature basically said the Department of Education doesn't have to tell us how to deal with this until June of 2023, but we can start being sued on July 1st. So I expect there will be lawsuits. So we are trying our very best to try to go through everything. So the way that we're doing that is we are looking at, it's kind of a macro approach to everything that we're doing. We are going through and looking at, with our legal department, with our teaching department, with our learning and ed tech department, we have to go through everything that's available online and everything that's available in person. And every training that we have, all of these have to be reviewed. The other piece that we have to review them for is for the Individual Freedom Act. It's called the Stop Woke Act. You've heard of this one. It's HB 7. And so we're reviewing all of these things for, it's basically like the idea around CRT. Let me start with the CRT conversation. And for all of you who don't know what that is, it's basically critical race theory. I think we all are well aware of how this is working. The idea behind critical race theory is that we are making people feel bad in our educating, and we're not allowed to make anyone feel bad. We can't talk about whiteness or blackness or what that means, and nobody can feel bad during any conversation. So if there's any trainings or any divisive concepts that are in there, none of those can happen. So we have to go through all of our trainings to make sure this doesn't happen either. So we're having all of these different departments that are going to be reviewing every bit of our curriculum right now to make sure that we don't have anything in there. Now, do we teach CRT? No, we have never taught CRT. We don't teach anything related to CRT. We've had some education that talks about the history that goes on in this country. Both of these bills were ones that I thought no way in the world we're actually going to pass in Palm Beach County. I just thought there's no way that this is, or not Palm Beach County, in the state of Florida. I thought, they threaten with a lot of things and then it doesn't go through, but this time it actually did. So this is another one that's in there. So it is, so it provides that subjecting individuals to instruction or training or activities that espouse, promote, or compel divisive concepts constitutes unlawful discrimination, and any instructional materials that contradicts these principles are all going to be reviewed for possible discontinuation. So that's the Stop Woke Act. And also all of these provide the ability for you to sue if you want to as a person, if you feel that you're being discriminated against as a person, to the school board, and then actually provides damages for the cost for you to have to sue. So we have to pay your lawyer fees to do this. So, I mean, this is the kind of legislation that's coming out right now. Okay, the other one I wanted to mention, I have a couple I want to mention. One that kind of came up last night that I want you guys to understand. There was a thing about restraints for students with disabilities. It was a bill that came up, HB 235. We made some changes to our to our policy to adopt the part that came down from the state that basically said that we are prohibited from using mechanical or physical restraints on a student with disabilities. Once again, Palm Beach County has never used this, not in the history of any time I'm here. Our policy already included this. We already made sure we didn't do this. So when it came up and we had to add this in, we were being accused by some of the people that come in that, oh, we were restraining children with physical or mechanical restraints. That we were not. So all we were doing was we were trying to add in the legislation that we had to and the wording that came from the state. That was basically stopping other districts from doing this as a state law now, but we were already ahead of the game on this and we were not doing that. So let's just be clear in case anyone's curious about that. You might remember SB 148 about the student assessments. One thing that DeSantis has gotten a lot of credit for is getting rid of the testing. And personally, I would love if we had less testing. I think that the testing can be very intense for a school. What happens is right around this time of the year, just a couple weeks ago, we start testing within our schools. And what happens is we kind of lock down the students and we don't allow them to have any, they have to kind of stay quiet in case anybody's testing. There's no going on field trips. They try to keep the school as quiet and calm as possible so that people have the ability to learn. Also, no outside visitors can come in. I actually went to a school not realizing testing had started and I couldn't get in the door. I think if I had pushed and said who I was, I could have got in, but I was like, oh, I'm so sorry you're having testing. It is you shut down the school and make sure nothing happens because we want the kids to be not disturbed by anything. So no one's walking around, nothing's happening. We focus on testing. It is very stressful for the students. I do think this is not something that's great for them. So we're happy with the idea of this changing. Apparently it's not changing as much as we had originally hoped. There was a lot of talking about how great it was going to be. That hasn't really happened to the level that we were expecting. But what is going to happen is we're going to have some progress monitoring that goes along with it. And then there's going to be a bunch of smaller standardized tests throughout the year instead of one big one at the end. That's basically how it goes. So we're going to follow the students and they're going to hopefully see over time how they're doing. It is important for us to know if a student is doing well, we can adjust teaching based on that, or if a student is doing poorly in an area, they can adjust teaching on that. So that kind of monitoring was already happening, but the idea is to get rid of that big test at the end. So we're still figuring out how this works. It leaves a lot of questions unanswered, unfortunately, in the way that the bill was written. So we're hoping for some guidance from DOE for next year, which is a really good thing. The Florida Bright Future Scholarship, HB 461, said that, I don't know if you guys knew about this, but there was a provision in Bright Futures that you had to volunteer for a portion of your time in high school in order to get this scholarship. They've actually changed it to call it paid out. You're allowed to use paid hours. So if you have a job in any capacity, that counts towards Bright Futures. And I just don't understand the point of this bill. I really liked the volunteering. I thought volunteering was very good. And I don't understand why we need the students to put any hours in. If you're going to pull the volunteering out, just pull it out. Rather than saying that you can also do paid hours and have a job. It just didn't make any sense to me, but that's coming too. The one that I think should bother everyone a lot is SB 758. It's the Charter School Review Commission bill. The reason that this really upsets me, so as you know, in Palm Beach County, we've had a storied history with our charter schools where we have tried to sue them a bunch of times. And I know you all were very supportive of this in the past. We have sued many times to try to stop charters from coming into this area because, it's detrimental to our ability to have good schools when they come and put one right next to it. We believe in some charters being good, but it could be very detrimental. So we've had a few lawsuits, one of which I'll talk about in a little bit here, but in all of our lawsuits, we've lost. We just keep losing. So we kind of come to a place where we don't have a lot of choice in this. And, it's really difficult when the state is set up the way it is. And we've had governors and a lot of the judges have been chosen by the same, party for so many years. It is very difficult to be in this state and try to make change like that. So we understand that charters now have a foothold in Palm Beach County. And one of the ways that they're going to get around this is they have created a charter school review commission at the Florida Department of Education. So a charter school, when they come to Palm Beach County, has the option to either come to us or they can go to the state level board and they can get approved up there. But basically they're getting approved. They're either going to come to us and we just approve them because we have no real choice in the matter, or they're going to go to the state level and they're going to get approved. The thing that I really find very irking in this whole process is that they put in a piece where the State Board of Education is going to appoint members to this oversight review committee. And then the Department of Education authorized in this bill, they had to hire technical and administrative assistants from a Florida-based college or university. And the one that they chose happens to be in the hometown of Manny Diaz, who also owns charter schools. It's called the Florida Institute for Charter Innovation, which is at Miami-Dade College. They created this whole space at Miami-Dade College, and it's going to be based in Miami and partnered with Doral College. So these are the resources for the charter schools to evaluate the sponsors are being funded in the space with our legislation being a part of that. So they're going to actually make money off of this is really what the whole thing comes down to. It's very frustrating. I don't understand how this is possible, but I think it's a very frustrating thing, and these things just get through. Two more things I wanted to talk about. The school district financial penalty. As you remember last year when we decided as a school district that we were going to keep going with the masks, even though the governor didn't want us to. The reason why we chose not to was because we believed that we were the authority on the subject. And I still believe that we were the authority on the subject. But there was two pieces of the Constitution, one that said school boards are in charge of the schools. And then there's another piece that the governor feels like he was in charge of, the state. And they felt like they were competing in this situation. And so because that wasn't decided, they called a special session in November. They created laws because they can do that. That basically said, no, the governor's in charge and school boards are underneath it. And so once that happened and we were no longer going to be in compliance with the new law, we rescinded the mask mandate. It happened immediately the next day. So it's not like we were in violation of anything in the state. But what they've decided to do is they said that anybody in the state who is a school district who did not comply with the original order by the governor, which is 12 school districts. So it's us and pretty much every other urban district that has a lot of people and had the ability to stand up to the governor in this. Any of us are not allowed to get part of a $200 million recognition fund that we've had for years. This is something that we've had for a long time in the school district. It actually got removed a couple of years ago. So they're bringing back an old recognition program. It actually recognizes, when students do really well, it gives money back to the teachers. So our teachers are not going to be allowed to apply for that as a punishment to the school board, which is just insane to me because I was not influenced by any of these teachers. They did not make my decision for me, and they should not be punished for a decision that their school board made. Even if you hate me and the decision that I made, you can't hurt my teachers. Like, to me, that's a backwards way to go about trying to punish me, is to hurt a teacher. And now we're going to impact their pocketbooks over this. So it's very upsetting. It still has not been signed and it still hasn't gone through. There's a possibility that Broward is going to sue over this. They've been talking about that. I think it has a very good chance of us winning, because it's just really an unfair thing. I mean, I just can't see how you could bring this to a court of law and say that, is a punishment to 12 districts for not following the rules. We're going to punish the teachers within those districts. It just makes no sense. So 12 school districts, so Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, Duval, Orange, big districts, all, held the mask mandate, and now they're no longer available to have this. So that's frustrating. And then I just found one that I thought would be really interesting because it's actually quite topical and you may be interested in this. And I just got it recently. So I'm gonna open up the screen so I make sure I don't mess it up. On February 28th, 2022, so very recently, the Board of Directors of the Florida High School Athletic Association, so FHSAA, they conceptually approved reclassification for football in Florida. And their idea is that they want to split the state up into two different classification systems. One is going to be the metro suburban football classification. So they want to have like a metro area and a suburban area for football. And basically what it says is that if you're in the metro area, and metro counties are Broward, Duval, Hillsborough, Miami-Dade, Orange, Palm Beach, Pinellas, and Seminole. Those are the ones that are in the metro area. If you're in one of those areas, you'd compete for one state championship in football, and then every other county would compete for a whole different state championship in football. And the reason why people are upset about this is because that is the area where most of our minority children live. And so they're basically classifying them in one group, and then everybody else is going to be classified into the other group, and they wouldn't be able to compete for a real state championship. So it would really be a way to break apart the state into two different areas. This is not something that people are very happy about, but it actually goes in front of the FHSAA board on April 25th, and they have to decide whether or not they're going to do this and decide if we're going to be split into two different areas. This is not something that many people like. We've just recently gotten some information about this. The thing that is I think very upsetting about it is it's another way to kind of split apart the state in ways that aren't good. And it's not happening in any girls' sports. It's not even happening in any other male sports. It's just boys football in the state of Florida. They're trying to split it into these two groups. And so I think that this is very topical and something that you guys should watch as what's happening and just the way that they're setting up these divisions within the state. It doesn't make any sense at all to me. But I'll stop there and see what kind of questions you guys have. And if you want, we can talk about some other things as well.
Okay, people want to raise their hands. I have one comment slash question. When I was researching an article about the changes actually last year, when they were talking about their anti-CRT legislation, I came across a passage in the education bill that's not one of the ones they changed. It's actually from, it was a controversy apparently back in 2006 when Jeb Bush was governor. And the passage reads, well, actually, it was repeated in the education directive that they put out last year. Kokorin, I think, was the education commissioner. But the language is, instruction on the required topics must be factual and objective, and may not suppress or distort significant historical events such as the Holocaust, and may not define American history as something other than the creation of a new nation based largely on universal principles stated in the Declaration of Independence. So I wonder how you can teach history, how you can teach American history. You either have to say that slavery, post-Reconstruction terrorism, Jim Crow were all largely reflecting universal principles stated in the Declaration of Independence, or you don't teach them at all, you know. It's just, I wonder what happened prior to this. I mean, before all of the outrage over CRT, which wasn't even being taught, you were probably, and most school districts were violating that language. I mean, if you taught about the Civil War, if you taught about slavery, you'd be in violation. But what I'd like to ask you, in terms of the school board, people that come to the school board and you hear from them, and most of them or many of them are these people that believe that, you know, you're teachers are indoctrinating them in the black arts or something. Are there people that aren't crazy that come to those meetings? I know the Democratic Party has put together, and I joined the group of people to come to your meetings. And
yeah, I love this question, and I'm so glad you bring it up because man, what I would do for a supporter every once in a while. I mean, it is tough, some of these meetings. So I have to give some props to Justin Katz. He came yesterday and he spoke in a way that was very, very good. I actually wrote him afterwards and just thanked him for it because there's so many accusations being thrown around. And do you remember last week or the week before, there was a letter that people said was a Palm Beach County school teacher saying they were going to stop using pronouns completely. Do you remember that going around? That was like it was silly. So it turned out it was a satirical letter. It was a joke somebody wrote. They actually live in Michigan, I think. They don't live anywhere around here, but it made its way around in the Twitterverse and people were reading it. And it was a joke that they said, because of, DeSantis's bill, and you should look it up, it's kind of funny, but because of DeSantis's bill and the legislation in Florida around don't say gay, I've decided to stop using pronouns completely in my classroom. And nobody's going to be a he or she, everyone's going to be a they. It was funny, right? But the people that were against this and have been, upset and up in arms about it, really believed that it was a Palm Beach County teacher. Somehow it got attributed to a Palm Beach County teacher. So Justin, being the head of the teachers union, got up and said last night, well, I don't believe any Palm Beach County teacher or teacher anywhere is going to stop using pronouns. Like, that is not happening. Stop accusing us of things that don't make any sense. And that's really the kind of fight that we're having. And so to have Justin just say those words, it was really nice for me. I was very happy because we don't often get someone coming just to say, no, we're not doing these things. These don't happen. So occasionally we'll get someone who really just wants to bring back the like common sense to the conversation. And so they realize that these things aren't happening. Like when I'm talking about the physical restraints, like they believe that we're using mechanical restraints in Palm Beach County to hold children down. We are not. And so it's hard for us sometimes to be in those situations where I believe we're just a good school board of 7 people just trying to do the right thing every day and trying to support really great staff. Our staff is amazing and they work really hard, and we have some awesome teachers that are dedicated and don't make enough money, and they come every day and they work hard for children. And I think that somehow that message has gotten skewed and it's very frustrating. So to have somebody come, occasionally we do, but other people come. There's one man who comes every month and yells at us and says we never talk about education, and I get so frustrated because we talk about education all the time, but he comes on the night when people are just yelling about something, and he'll sit there and I'm like, we talk about education constantly. And he wants to just scream and yell and get his airtime. And it's frustrating because I want to be able to talk back. And as board members, we have made a decision just never to respond because it doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't actually help, but sometimes it can be very frustrating. So if you're ever able to come, I will. No.
Next one. What you just said reminded me. I don't know if you saw, with the pronoun spoof. Birds aren't real.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I don't know. Google it if you haven't seen it. Birds aren't real. And some guy in Nashville, for years, he promoted this whole thing that there weren't birds anymore. They were all mechanical. The computer scientists put it together, and they even have some newscaster. The pretty blonde and the man of color, and they're asking him about this, like, are you real? And he's totally deadpan, and he's going, and the newscasters are like looking at each other. But that, you know,
Yeah. I really
uh,
want to buy that for my husband. He
yeah.
told me that about that podcast when he listened to it. I want to get him a shirt that says birds aren't real.
Yeah, they have, yeah, they
Couldn't
sell
stop
them.
laughing about it, but that's pretty much how it is. It feels like that, where we are arguing against absolute ludicrousy sometimes, and it's frustrating because it's so untrue.
Yeah.
But they truly believe we're trying to hurt children, and we are really not. And let me mention one more thing I forgot to mention. We do have a referendum coming up. You guys may remember that we did this 4 years ago. It's on the November ballot again this year. We will be talking about it. One of the other legislative pieces that went through is they made a law that we're no longer allowed to pay people to promote this. We can't use public dollars. We were never using dollars that would have gone to a student. We actually get some money from a lease of, we have a Sprint tower on one of our properties, and they give us a lease for that. So we would use that money. So it was separate dollars coming in, and we'd use that to promote it. So whenever you saw those, vote for education signs, that was the money that we used. We'd allocate some funds. We are completely cut off from doing that now because the legislature said we're not allowed to promote our own referendums, and not even to educate. We can't advocate, but we cannot educate either. I can in my position as a school board member, because I'm not under the same purview as like the superintendent, but we just cannot do that anymore. So we are in a kind of a tricky position, and we would appreciate your help to get the word out about the referendum coming back out. It's the same one we did before, same exact one. Arts, music, PE teachers, teacher supplements, which also have gotten more rules on them from the state. So that's another problem, but we'll have teacher supplements in there, safety and security and mental health. So the same things we did 4 years ago, it's coming back up on the referendum this November. And I think this is a crucially important thing because it's what makes Palm Beach County tenable for these families to live in, is that we give extra money and we give these extra resources for safety and security that we all care about. Our art schools are amazing. We need PE teachers. We need music programs. I know we all care about those things, so we want those to be a part of it. And then the mental health, we've done so much with that money. That money has actually given us over 200 professionals within our schools to do behavioral health work. We have teams that go out anytime there's a crisis, and we have more crisis than ever within our schools. So look for that November on the ballot. And also I'm up for election, so please consider voting for me too.
Are you, would it be any conflict of interest or problem for you to write something up? We have a newsletter, the Delray Democrat. It goes out to about 500 people. I don't know if they read it. Our Vice President Shar walks around and delivers hard copies to like 300 people in our community. So it does get out there, and that we're always looking for articles. That would be a great thing to. And whenever, there's a lot of time between now and November. My real question is whether it's something you would be able to do, or is you're going to get in trouble for doing it.
I think I can. I'm actually going to get a legal opinion on this new legislation to make sure that it's okay for me to be out there, because I feel like as school board members, we have got to. This is and I'm hopeful that we'll have outside organizations come in and want to support this, but it's not going to look like it did in the past, because we put, tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars into those papers and things that went around. So I don't know what we're going to do. We don't know. We don't know. This kind of went through, and everyone's kind of looking at each other like, why is this important? But
if Donald Trump could tweet, certainly a school board member can write.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, I agree. Also,
Steve, you had a question?
Go ahead.
Steve?
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you?
It isn't even so much a question as I just wanted to say that the office that you are running for and holding is the most important elective office in the state. I don't care what they say about the senseless. Yours is the most important office because you're dealing with children. And unfortunately, this state, say what you want, has a vendetta against its children. And the attacks that it's making on possible psychological damage to people in their younger years is, in my opinion, tantamount to genocide. it's killing our children. I have a 13-year-old grandson who, if he were in school in Florida, wouldn't be able to talk about his parents because he has two moms, and one of them is my daughter, and that's being made illegal here in my state is killing me. I have one of the things that I have a project in the works right now, and if you can help me with this, I would be delighted. I have a project. I'm putting together a document that will teach parents the way to talk to children about gender identity. My daughter and my daughter-in-law, both of whom have advanced degrees in education, have written a draft for me already. And as soon as I can put this thing together, I want to distribute it free to everybody in Florida. I will make it as a PDF file. I will have it available on computer to every deck in the area. I will make it available to anybody who wants it because it's that important to me, and I hope you'll help me with it. Thank you for allowing me to talk. And Mike, Michael, I'd also like to make an announcement a little later if I could.
Yeah.
I appreciate your advocacy. I really do. It's very important. Our children need advocates right now.
Bob?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Erica, thank you for joining us tonight. It's great to see you. Yeah, and this is actually a bit of a segue from what Steve just talked about. You know,
you're a new grandpa.
I am, and number two arriving in September. So more knowledge to come. Thank you. So we in Palm Beach County, we are very blessed with an embarrassment of riches, and that riches comes in the form of the vast pool of retired people, retired from education, retired from business, retired from other life endeavors, etc. Whose knowledge and experience and desire to be continually engaged is an enormous opportunity for our kids here in Palm Beach County. And we like to feel needed, we like to feel useful. And we feel like we have something maybe to impart, to these wonderful kids. So I guess it's a question about what programs maybe already exist or are perhaps being teed up on a whiteboard somewhere that would incorporate the experience of our retired people as an extension to the professionals in the classroom and other extracurricular opportunities that exist and so on. I know I, for one, and I suspect many on this call would love to be able to do more for and with our kids here in Palm Beach County.
I love that you're interested. That makes me really happy. We actually do have volunteers in all our schools, and we could use the help. Our teachers are overburdened, overworked, and having additional supports is a wonderful thing. You can do anything as simple as just offering to come in and read to the students. They get really excited about that. I do it all the time. They'll invite you in for special reading days too if your school knows that you're an interested volunteer. We have volunteers that treat it like a full-time job, and they go every day, and they are there with those students, helping in the classroom to control the multiple things that are going on within there. We have some that'll even just come in and do copies. They'll be like, I'll sit in the office and do busy work like that free up our teachers for the important work that they're doing. So I would say there's a ton of volunteering opportunities within your schools. Within your cities, many of our cities actually have education boards. And so if you look for something that's more of a high-end policy level kind of discussion, I think those are great. Within my city, I just helped to create one, and I've been recruiting people in. One of the things that I'm asking them to do is to go to their local school SAC meetings. They are always looking for partners within the community. They can never find enough, especially if you go to a low-income school. Those are usually held in the evenings. Those so you wouldn't have to be there when the students are there. You just go in the after hours. They have business partnership opportunities. If you have a business, or even if you just want to be a community member in there, you can just be there to talk about the principal is required by state law to have a school advisory council. You have to have people within the community on it. You have to have some parents, and you have to have, I think we usually have at least one teacher that sits on it, but they decide on things like if we get A+ money, like we were talking about coming into the school, they decide how to spend it, what's the best use of those funds. They usually do it at the same time as the PTA, but I got to tell you, usually in these low-income schools, it is just the principal looking at one teacher and no parents are there. And so having that person there is a wonderful thing. The last thing I'll say is on this, I was actually at Atlantic High School the other day, which I know you all live very close to. I was there yesterday, actually, and I had a really long talk with Miss Edwards, our new principal, and she said how much she wishes that she had a mentorship program and people who would come in and mentor the students. So I have had a mentor at Atlantic High School for this whole year, a mentee that I've had and I've worked with, and she is a senior, and she went through the whole college acceptance process with me. And I only ever met with her on the phone. I actually didn't meet her until her birthday this week. I got to meet her for the first time. We went out to breakfast, but I spent a bunch of time talking to her through that whole college acceptance process. Her family's from Haiti, and they weren't as engaged in the process as they maybe could have been. So I, being, that it hasn't been that long since I went to college, I got to be there for her on that. And it was such a great opportunity. So if you're interested in doing something like that, and I feel like I got more out of it than she did, truthfully. I have a 14-year-old who's going to be going to college soon, and she gave me tips and tricks for, what happens when you go through high school and what the best way to do that is. And I just really enjoyed getting to know her. She's got a full ride to the University of North Carolina, and she's going to be doing a gap year. And I feel like I got to, talk to her about those experiences and what I thought she should do, and kind of be that extra voice for her, to listen to. So I think that would be an awesome opportunity if you guys really want to get engaged. And they have some official programs like Take Stock in Children and things like that, where you get to volunteer and really get engaged with the student. But even on a small level, you could just go to your local school and tell them that you're interested. And then, participate in those SAC meetings. They would love the community support.
No, that's great. No, I appreciate that, because at the beginning of the school year, I went to a meeting at Carver Middle that was engaging the public, and the whole idea was to create, lots of volunteerism. I, met with the technology person there because I'm a retired IT guy, and was a math major in college, and was offering my my help on those fronts. And for whatever reason, it never materialized. But I'm very encouraged by what you just talked about the mentoring program, because for several years before I moved to Florida, when I lived in Connecticut, I was a mentor to incarcerated youth
Wow.
in a youth correctional institute, and pre-qualified mentees who were close to their release dates as a way to be part of their reentry. And it was, it was some of the most rewarding stuff I've ever done. So that's very encouraging what they're doing at Atlantic. Chance to work with some kids in that.
Wow, I loved it. It's been fabulous for me to have that experience. And I know Miss Edwards is very interested. And if you haven't met your new principals, you have two new ones there. I mean, Miss Edwards and Miss Grace are both brand new to the middle school and the high school. I know they could use that support from the community. They're really wanting to get to know the communities even more. So I think it's a really good opportunity to kind of get in there and offer your services. Tell them what you want to do. They're not gonna want to overtax you, but I think they'll take any help you can give. If you even say, I just want to come in for a couple hours a week, put me to work, they will.
Wonderful, thank you.
And then just so you're aware, we will do like background checks and all that on you.
Oh, of
and
course.
So like everyone, we make sure that everyone's clear. We don't just like send you in with children. We do check.
Absolutely.
So.
Bob's a dangerous guy.
Yeah, I'm glad you gave me the heads up. I'll hide my printing press.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, do we have other questions? We went on so long, and I'm not Mark LaFalez just sent me a chat that he has to run. So we'll have him on next time. But let's go on with more questions for Erica. Bye, Mark. Very sorry. You're muted.
I say I enjoy Miss Whitfield, yeah, but it's great. It's great things. I learned so much. Thank you.
Okay. See you next time.
See you next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
One of the things that I think you guys should know about during all this, I had made a note about just so for your edification, is that in all of these laws that I'm putting forward, saying that the rules that we now have to do, charter schools are not required to do any of those. They are considered exempt because parents choose to send their children there. And so as a choice, they know what they're getting into. And so they're not required to follow any of that.
Parents ought to pay for it.
Well, we have
Well,
that
it's-
other problem too, where they've allocated quite a bit of our funds to private schools now. And that's been another issue that came out of session a few years ago. But it's ongoing and they keep allocating even more funds for it and making it easier and easier to take advantage of those funds. So people can just say that they want to go to a private school and then we'll send them a check to help with it.
Especially if that
$7,000.
private school has a religious symbol on the outside of it.
Yeah, they can. So it's
We're not saying which religion.
So somebody said a few years ago that public education was the last part of America that they haven't raped yet.
They have now.
I mean, they have their eyes on it, and it's and it's funny because some of the people that first were behind charter schools, like Diane Ravitch up in New York, very bright person, and she, after several years, she did a 180-degree turn, and you know, I mean, one of the they're trying to bleed the public school system. You can pay teachers less in charter schools, and it's one of the things, the three things that made America great, as the maggot crowd refers to it, are immigration, education, and democracy, and all three of them there are in the crosshairs. So
yeah. Well, I am running for re-election. I hope you all will support me in this process.
Oh, you bet. Yeah.
Thank you.
No,
I am
well,
trying my very best.
Yeah.
I would be grateful for it. It's been an interesting few years, but I think more than ever, where I'm realizing that this is we have to fight as hard as we can, especially in Palm Beach County, because we have the fight in us still. We're here and we are strong within this community. So I think we can. And I am really just trying to bring a level-headed approach to education, which I think is what, we're all trying to do here. So
good luck to you and the kids you're fighting for.
Thank you.
Good luck.
If you guys ever need me
Okay.
for anything, I'll put my email in the chat, and you guys can just go ahead and send me an email about any concerns you have.
Okay, and I will touch base on that article sometime in the future after you've, after
let's
you've got
have
clearance.
Yeah, let's get a little closer to November too. I think, with the elections coming up in August, it's going to be a distraction before that. But after August, I think we really do need
Good.
to do a full
Okay.
court press on this because
And it's more timely then too,
exactly.
closer. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want people to forget about this because we are going to need to be able to get those funds. If nothing else, it is really expensive to live here in Palm Beach County, and we need to be able to give our teachers every dollar we possibly can, because it's actually, it helps us to draw people from other counties, and there's not that many teachers out there. So we need as many as we can get, and it's very hard to live here, as you guys know.
It's an obscenity what they pay teachers. I had a mid career change, and went to law school and was lucky enough for a brief period up in New York to work at some of the big law firms, you know, and some first-year associate who couldn't find the water fountain was making more money than a teacher who worked for 30 years at the end of her tenure was making. I mean, you really have to be dedicated to be a teacher, you know,
Yeah.
because you're not in it for the money.
Yeah, it's phenomenally unfair that we expect people to be that, where you're just so giving that you just don't make any money. And it is very, very stressful. And I think it is breaking apart society to do that to people. So
Yeah.
I think we have to fight. And at Palm Beach County, we've done it and we'll continue to do it.
But of course, as long as there are people who are willing to work for that money, that's what they're going to pay. If there weren't people willing to work for that money, they'd have to pay more or not have teachers. But as long as there are people who are willing to work for subsistence wages, unfortunately, that's what the towns are going. That's what any employer would pay.
Of course.
It's a sad situation, but that's the way the system is designed.
Yeah, it's true.
So
We did just give a large raise to our substitutes because of that this year. We couldn't get enough substitutes and nobody was showing up for the job. So we gave it a $3 an hour raise and it has helped. So.
And this has been a particularly tough couple of years for substitutes, I would imagine.
Brutal, absolutely brutal.
okay.
Well, thank you guys. It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
to
thank
see
you so
Thank
much,
you.
Erica. This has been great, really.
Thanks for
And
inviting
thank
me.
you, Bob. I should say, Erica, that it was Bob's idea to have you. At our last board meeting, I was thinking of having Karen. And we've had her before, and Bob said, well, you know, I mean, Erica's in Delray and is running for re-election. So you can be sure you're going to have the strong support from all of our members.
Thank you so much. I really, really need it. It's a very serious race, so I'm very grateful for it.
Okay.
And I think it means a lot to our community. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, you bet. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
David, you're going to do the countdown or you disappeared?
I was going to make an announcement if I could.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Steve. You said that
Before
before.
everybody, it's on Monday night, April 18th from 5 to 8 p.m. having a kickoff campaign kickoff and fundraiser for Ty Javiana, who is running for Chief Financial Officer. This is going to be at the Ann Kolb Nature Center in Hollywood. Everybody's invited. I don't know that there is a minimum contribution. Any contribution, of course, will be welcome. But this is going to be the kickoff. And Taya, if you know him, is the only person running for CFO who actually has experience as a CFO. And he's got decades of experience in finances. So I think he's a good guy. That's Monday night, April 18th.
Post it on if you haven't, on the Facebook page.
I will.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
And a reminder to those that April 18th is also this year's deadline for filing your taxes. So if you haven't done it yet, get to it.
Get mine today. Yeah.
Those of us who earn money.
It was ugly. It was ugly.
Okay, David.
Bye, everyone. See you
Okay,
later.
thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
5,
Here comes the
4,
countdown.
3, 2, 1.